the original scope of work for Port City, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is a bump in the road, and I know Ralph had concerns about that and asked the question, which was a good one, is that we're asked to direct our attention right now for what we can do to kind of put a finger in the dike, if you will, to get some additional space and have the town office continue in a better manner.
Yeah, that's definitely, and Curtis can speak to this. When they visited us a few weeks back, they provided, their preliminary proposed first drafts for the town office in the current building when fire department moves out, and then proposed new facility for the fire department. And then they had this kind of curveball thrown at them, and they were very willing and accommodating and within the price range to work with us, because that's a very significant need right now. Is we really need to maximize the space that we have and be able to sustain us for the next couple of years going forward. And so the momentum, and I think the excitement in designing a new town office and designing a brand new fire department is still there. It's just like Beth said, just a small little glitch to just kind of accommodate the current needs while we're moving forward with our future needs.
Not a glitch, a good thing to keep everything going. And after we get done tonight with this, they do have plans for the firehouse worked up, and they have plans for the future town office needs. And we'll be directing more attention and hopefully get those plans out to Ralph, Beth, Martha, and the other fire people after we've looked at them, okay? And so we'll move forward with that. So are we comfortable with this so we can move on? Okay. So welcome, Bob Ernest. Bob is on the Board of Select, and he's here to discuss with us the grant from Efficiency of Maine on retrofitting heat pumps. So can you enlighten us, Bob, tonight?
Sure. I'll try to make this quick. So the goal that we've set out on is to provide heat pumps for the current public safety and town office building, but to size them to meet the anticipated BTU load of the future building. Future building being after we build the new public safety building across the street and further reconfigure the town office building, add insulation, change walls, all that kind of thing. You do not want to provide heat pumps that are sized to meet the demand today and then have them be too large from a BTU standpoint in the future, because unlike a lot of heat systems, with heat pumps in particular, if they're oversized, their efficiency goes down dramatically. So Port City Architects was going to do some modeling on the structure at a very high level, working with one of their subcontractors to determine what would the BTU load look like today, and what would it look like after anticipated work that we would do on the building in some number of years down the road. After we get that modeling from Port City Architects, then we can get some heat pump suppliers out to walk through the building and get quotes from them. This will help determine the nature of our application to Efficiency Maine. It'll also help us further detail out the power requirements. As most of you know, we've got issues with the panel. So far, the issues have been described in rather general terms, but after this work with Port City Architects leads to quotes from mini split companies, then we'll have a better sense of what the load looks like compared to the capacity of the current panel. We have some ideas now of the current panel in terms of spaces, but we need to do a little more analysis on what is the actual amperage load on that panel, both now and after heat pumps and after broadband. Having said that, I think it's 99% certain we're going to need a new panel. I think it's also relatively certain it's not going to need to be bigger than 400 amp. So I would encourage the committee to consider looking at moving forward on the purchase of a panel, because it's a long lead time item. So as soon as we get the modeling from Port City Architects, then we can have visits with heat pump suppliers. I did have a general conversation with one today that I've done a lot of work with in the past and described the building to him. And he, with that description, without a walkthrough, he said he couldn't be certain, but it sounded like a doable project. He said he would have to visit to actually know more about that. After we get a couple of quotes, then we can contact Efficiency Maine and get the grant applications rolling. Questions?
I'll have a question real quick on it. Just on the end of, we have not yet been released yet to do the energy modeling yet. We were going to provide a quote from the engineers as part of it for the proposal. Remember when we sat down, he had a cost. He came back, he said it will be about $4,800 for that energy modeling to get done and all that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Any other questions or concerns?
I assume we're trying to coordinate this with the other improvement work, this interim improvement work that we're going to talk about, rather than being a separate project. We're going to do this all at once.
Yes.
Okay.
And I should have added one more detail. These heat pumps would serve, at least in the interim period, and maybe even in the longer run, as an additional source of heat and the source of cooling. In other words, we're not planning to deactivate the legacy heat system, at least not in the short run. For the purposes of our grant application, we will need to be able to, with a straight face, describe the heat pumps as the primary source of heat and cooling. Cooling, not a problem. Heat, we'll just need to make sure that we can get past that hurdle with them. For them to award grants, the heat pump needs to be considered from a design standpoint, the primary source of heat and cooling. Ralph.
So we know we need a new panel, but what's this look like on the generator? How much more will the generator handle?
The generator is a 400 amp generator. I'm sorry, it's a 200 amp generator. So the question is, can the generator be configured to cover the critical needs of a 400 amp service, or do we need to improve the generator? That's another question that has to be answered.
Or can we cut down on what the generator's running and, prioritize?
Yeah,
that
that's
way?
what I said. Yep. So you would have a sub panel that was specific to the generator's capacity during a power outage.
Okay.
Coffee maker, pancake griddle, all the important stuff.
Town office, we can make it so the town office isn't on the generator. That way we'll have to close every time the power goes out. The one thing that I do want to mention with the discussion of the generator, and Bo has something that he wants to say, is I want to reel in very quickly the broadband committee into this discussion. The broadband committee wants to be able to put their hub on town property. They have money within their budget to cover the cost of a generator to cover that. So in relation to talking about any upgrades about a generator or upgrades about electrical, things like that, in reference of the budget that I talked about numbers, keep in mind that the broadband committee also has their own budget to upgrade those things, and to cover the cost of the generator, things like that. So we would be able to kind of go into that budget to help with those costs, because it would be helping multiple sources, broadband, town in general. So the money, I know it seems like it's a small portion for a lot of things, but there is a couple of different avenues where we can source out some of the cash. So when it comes to upgrades, electrical, generator wise, we will be able to dip into broadband funds that are already available and has been specifically set aside for those expenses to cover some of those costs.
Yeah, and I would suggest that's for the generator, the new service, but the new service, including all the way out to the pole, which is not a minor proposition given the lay of the land. So
Ralph?
Well, is the generator you're talking about, they have broadband, would that be a separate generator, their own generator, and not hooking into ours? How do they anticipate it all working?
Bo, do you want to speak right now? Because you've had your hand up for a while.
All right, I'll answer that generator thing. They're looking to set up somewheres on town property and hook on to the generator that's existing at the town office so that they don't need a generator. So if they don't do that, then they need to buy a generator just like there is at the clam shack, just a little generator. I guess it doesn't take that much to run.
Right.
So they're just looking to alleviate some cost off theirs to do that.
And that's where I think ideally what they're hoping is that it could be all combined into one thing and hooked to the current existing facility, which to upgrade the current existing facility to accommodate that addition, that broadband funds could be used to cover that cost. But I think that's a decision that could be ultimately made in the future.
Yeah, my concern is it sounds like the generator is getting close to capacity, and if we're going to add on heat pumps, that's going to put more capacity, not less. So I don't know. We're going to have a discussion with the electrical engineer to make sure that works. Right now, it doesn't look good for that. So I don't know.
If I may say, in December's meeting, I think, Ralph, you asked the question to broadband if they would be willing to work with us on a generator at that time. And Michael Porter said that he would go back and look at that situation. Do you remember the conversation?
I remember talking about it, but if we're going to, we'd have to be, are we talking about buying another generator, a new one, a bigger one? I mean,
I think
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I think until, I think, you know, there's two things here that we're trying to achieve tonight is to see as a committee if we want to reach out to get an order or request from the Board of Selectmen to purchase the 400 amp service so that it can be there at some point. And if they go order it now, it will be there. The other thing is, it's my understanding until they do this modeling, we need to even find out if this is the time for heat pumps and what they will come out with that. Is that not correct? I got that from the meeting the other day. Curtis, if you would weigh in on this.
Yeah, so when we discussed in that meeting, with this energy modeling being done, we can look at the present building without insulation. The engineers will do a 3D model of it and run the BTUs that are going to be needed and the energy costs for the current building, and then they can run it in the future as what we're looking for this town hall to be with insulation, and see the difference in BTUs to see whether or not a heat pump that is, say, oversized is not oversized for the future, or if there's a way of doing, if we need to look at insulating earlier than we would like onto the building, so that way that it's more efficient. There's a couple different options at it, but really the energy modeling will give us those costs associated and the benefits of whether or not the heat pumps will work. So.
Bo.
Just talk about money right now. So we got 47,000 in the new town office. Are we taking all of Port City's money out of that line item? Is that where the motion was?
That's correct.
Okay, so based on what you said, I'm not holding you to it. We got about another half that's due to Port City.
I can, you give me,
I know,
talk about
I'm just,
something else and then give me
no,
like
no.
3 minutes and I'll give you the exact number.
I'm not trying to point the finger at you. I'm just trying to get
I
the
don't
number
think
here.
I don't think it's half of that. I think we, to my memory, and like I said, don't hold me to it, we've already paid half, if not more, of what we owe to Port City.
Okay. So they still got like $10,000 to take out of there, $12,000, give or take. So that leaves us with, $35,000 in that line item. So I don't want people to think that we have 47 when we truly have 35. Also the $4,800, does that come out of, is that over what we, that doesn't come out of that $12,000, does it?
Yeah,
Or
so for the 40, my understanding is, and I wasn't part of that conversation the other day, but my understanding is $4,800 is going to be additional. So that would be a proposal that I would have to bring to the Board of Selectmen as an agenda item to determine for an approval. And then a decision would need to be made where that's going to come out of.
All right, that's what I was trying to get to see if that was. Also, I don't know. Well, we're still talking about the heat pumps, or are we kind of moving into the electrical system, or is it kind of all messed in?
They kind of go together.
So,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Do you have more about that? Because David has his hand up and I'd like to move on to that, but we're trying to give you as much information as was given where we had a electrical engineer come out yesterday. So we've got kind of a guideline. And then I think Bob's research into this grant, this funding for heat pumps has made them look back at the need of this modeling to see if this is going to work.
Well, my question was just if the electrician had come up with a rough idea of, yeah, you're maxed out or something like that before we even go to modeling.
Yep.
Just curious.
Can I just buzz in really quickly? So just for perspective, current to date, we've already paid Port City $21,498 with our contract of about $29,000. So we have less than 10 grand that we would owe them for the remainder of this. So
David, you had your
Yeah. Bob, do you know if this energy analysis expense and design services could be included in the grant request? Or is that just equipment only typically?
good question.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't believe so, but we can check on that. Bob, I think, because you have you are the expert from the board, and I say that in all due respect, that I think you will have to pose the questioning, or pose a discussion with the board regarding the importance of this, correct?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
Lita.
As you guys are talking about generators, have you guys done a grant for a generator recently? Those are the easiest grants to get. That's on all of our projects. That's the number one thing that gets dropped off of our cost estimate and goes to grant category. I've got 3 public projects that are currently in bid, and every one of them, they're like, yeah, we can get that. So usually it's check with the fire. What's the agency that does, it's not a union, but an organization for fire chiefs, Ralph. They should have that information for you. And if they don't,
You were broken up.
Oh,
I
I was
only
going to
got
say,
part of that.
it's something that, it's a grant that most fire stations and police stations take advantage of. And if
So
you,
that's how we got this generator, current one.
okay, how long have you had it?
It's been 10 years, 15 years, I can't remember.
It's time. So it's worth going after. And if you
Well,
need
we
that contact information, let us know. I can ask some of our other clients. Curtis can let me know if you need that.
It's like
That-
3 different grants.
That would be great.
on
We need to
fire
know how
department.
big we need.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's safe to say, if we were going after a new generator today, we should size it to 400 amps. Then it would be equivalent to and capable of the new 400 amp service that we think we need. If the grant maker requires more documentation than that, if they require a pretty solid case to be built, then we might want to apply for that new generator once we have more information. If, on the other hand, it's really easy to get a grant for a new generator because the old one's 10 years old, go for it, get it.
Then we
Okay.
could put that generator at the Public Works.
Correct. The existing one could be moved to the public work. Yep.
So Lita, can you get that information? I'm looking, I know there's 3 fire department grant things. There's the Department of Homeland Security, there's FEMA, and there's Maine Volunteer Fire Assistant Program grants. So, you know, if you could get us the information, maybe we can work with that. Okay, let's move on if there isn't any more concerns. I think we've got some work to do. I think Bob, you know, is gonna need to put something on the agenda to discuss with the Board of Selectmen regarding the heat pumps. And having said that, I'd like to move on with the electrical system update. And Curtis, you can tell us the story of yesterday and the electrical engineer.
One question before we move off this topic. I think the time to put it on the agenda for the select board is once we get the results of the BTU study. Does that sound right to you, Curtis?
Well, in the electrical side of it, I think regardless, the electrical panel will have to be upgraded. Right now, the actual panel itself, unless some of those breakers are inactive, which they didn't look like to our engineer, there is no room currently in that panel for heat pumps. It's
Right.
already maxed out in that panel. So regardless, we're going to have to upgrade that panel, even if it's still, say it's 250 amp that's needed or whatever. Yeah,
Maybe I
but
understood what Beth was asking. I thought Beth was asking me to go on the agenda with the select board to talk about heat pumps.
Bob, we have a number here that's been given to us for a modeling project, which we had nothing in our scope to do that with. And that's why I'm concerned that this has got to come out of something, and it hasn't been in our task, so to speak. So we need to talk about how we do that, because we're here to upgrade the needs of the town office from efficiency and equipment. So
From my viewpoint, the sourcing of heat pumps, the decision as to whether or not we can use heat pumps requires that study. So as part of the project cost, I'm not comfortable asking the select board for additional funds for that BTU study. Those guys think no.
Oh,
Can I just? So to get the BTU study, we need to pay $4,800. Right now, currently, to get the $4,800, it's got to be out of the new town office capital budget. We need a motion to free up that money to pay for the modeling. And Beth is asking you if you would be able to explain why it's important for us to get a modeling of that to do the adequate, to basically, we need the BTU number to get the right heat pumps, and we need to know that so that we can apply for the grant for the proper heat pump.
I keep hearing about this quote. I haven't seen it. So did I miss that in the first 5 minutes of the meeting? My apologies.
Oh, I do apologize, Bob. Yeah, it probably did. Curtis brought up that his electrician or engineer, Curtis, jump in if I misspeak, that it will cost $4,800 to do BTU modeling for before and after.
Right.
That's why Beth is asking us to bring it to the board and ask if the facility committee can basically get another $4,800 out of that line item.
This modeling has not been authorized by the selectmen to do. So if this modeling is the next step, which it sounds like, Bob, that's what you're saying, that, the next step would be this modeling. We need to bring it in front of the selectmen for the selectmen to authorize for me to sign the contract to proceed with the BTU modeling and expend that money to do that.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with that at all. I haven't had a chance to look at the proposal, but 4,800 is way more than I was expecting. An energy audit, a full energy audit of the building as it is would be much less than that. And I don't know what's driving that level of cost, but I'm not comfortable going to the select board asking for $4,800 for the modeling. I would prefer, if that's the cost of the modeling, that we go straight to the suppliers of the equipment. And also, to Dave's point earlier, try to see if there's a way to get, I was trying to look online while we were talking to see if there was a way to get auditing or modeling money as part of the grant. And I'm not comfortable asking for $4,800 just to decide whether or not to buy $12,000 to $16,000 worth of equipment.
Might it be appropriate then at that time where you're not comfortable, and I understand where you're coming from, but I also understand as a board what our charge was and the specifics. We kind of had this grandiose idea that, everybody's throwing grants at us and it's great, but there's work and proof to be done for grants. So I think we ought to step back and maybe, Bob, you can help. We could get together something and call Efficiency of Maine and see what they might offer to help us, because in their proposal, there are some things that they do indicate, and all of this committee has this copy. It was sent out to you, that maybe there's a way to get this done at a lesser cost.
And what proposal is that?
The Efficiency of Maine, not the proposal, but the grant criteria.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's very specific in there of some of the things that they offer for help. So let's have that on the to-do list, and we can report back to this. This grant has to be in the hands of Efficiency of Maine in August. That doesn't mean we're going to sit on it, but it means that we've got some time here. So does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Beth Putnam has her hand up, if we want to give
Yes,
her a
Beth,
minute.
go ahead.
Yeah, you guys might have already talked about this, but the Island Institute's doing a Spark grant, and under that is energy audits. I don't know if that would be worth looking into or not.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you help us with that maybe and get some more information, and maybe you can be part of that conversation with Bob
Yeah, you bet.
and Lita?
So while this is an energy audit, it's the modeling that is also included. It's not just an audit.
Right.
And they are modeling for both existing condition and projected future conditions. So they're doing two models. So I'm not, that's, I think, where we're getting You might need some help. I think it's a little above my knowledge. So I think what might be best is for Bob and Beth to do the research and maybe have a conference call or a Zoom call with the engineer.
Let me reframe the conversation. We started out with this being a discussion of using ARPA funds to improve the working conditions and efficiency at the current office between now and the time that we do the big project. And a part of that was thought to be, could we increase the quality of the air in the office structure in particular? And in particular, could we improve cooling in the summertime? We don't seem to have a heat problem with the current structure. At least that's what I was told the other day. Vika, correct me if I'm wrong. So we're talking about, because there's grant money out there, going after heat pumps sooner than we would normally go after them, because there's grant money out there, so that we can have cooler air in the summertime for the next 5 to 7 years. Spending $5,000 to do modeling to allow us to do that equals $1,000 per year just for the cost of the study to determine if it's feasible. And as a selectman, that's what I'm resisting. So if there's another way to skin that cat, if there's a way to use grant money to get that modeling done, that's fine. I do understand the difference between modeling and an energy audit. I do understand that an energy audit is only going to look at the current situation. They will not deal with the future situation. But from the standpoint of the town's coffers, from the standpoint of the taxpayer, spending $5,000 for the modeling for something that's only going to last for 5 years, and it's $5,000 to do modeling to then give us the ability to apply for something that we don't know that we're going to get. That's why my buttons are getting pushed right now on that topic. So happy to speak with the engineer about it, but I'm thinking of it more from the financial benefits, risks, and rewards standpoint. That make sense?
I have one little comment to that. So I think what you're saying, Bob, is absolutely right. But I think what makes it an extra step complicated is the fact that the broadband is in the position that they're in right now, where they want to put their equipment on the current property. I think that's where also a lot of the push is getting in determining whether the upgrade is needed or what the upgrade is.
Now, the modeling that we're talking about, Vika, has absolutely nothing to do with the electrical load analysis. It has to do with the BTU analysis of how to scale appropriately the heat pump output so that it's not oversized in 7 years.
Okay, that makes sense.
Bo? Bo?
Are we, this heat pump grant or efficiency main grant or whatever, is this thing going to be available again? Because we're having a conversation around and around about this building that's going to get remodeled. It's got heat currently. Yes, it does not have good AC, but I think it would be more beneficial to do an audit once the building is done, and then go for the grant for heat pumps. That way, alleviate what, $4,800. And we have to upgrade the surface anyway, so that has nothing to do with the heat pumps. But that way, we would have enough power then when we go for it. So, just my thoughts.
Lita?
So first of all, I just want to say, I really don't care if you go for this survey or not, just making sure you know what it is. And then next, the efficiency main is constantly changing and evolving, and different federal grants come out and different federal grants go away, and it changes. There's always something there. A lot of people probably know that, 10 years ago, Efficiency Main worked with a lot of municipalities and nonprofits to upgrade lights. That's pretty much gone away, but we're seeing a lot more in the mechanical systems and upgrading. Does that mean it's still going to be there? No, it's really hard, but that's where we're seeing the trend go.
Right.
So,
Mo's question is maybe, but we don't know.
So, Bo,
Can I just ask Lena a question? Do you think that Efficiency Maine has any available money for insulation that we might be able to apply for? Right now the plan is not to make that building any larger than it is. And I don't think the future plan is to make it larger than it is, but we need to insulate those walls to make it more efficient.
I don't know of any, and we just finished wrapping up Yorktown Hall, where we went for a different mechanical rebate. It wasn't a grant, it was a rebate. And our mechanical engineer was not Haley Ward, but he did do an in-depth research of what was available. And he did not come up. Does that mean, the only people that are more mysterious in construction is CMP.
if
So
I
shake an 8-ball,
if I might direct this, as far as this grant is concerned that we're talking about, I think it became of interest to the board and was passed on to us to look at this was because it was regarding municipalities with a population under 5,000 residents. And so, we kind of jumped there, but I guess, I have some personal opinions on this, but I want to do what the majority of us want to do here. This heat pump thing came in at a time when, it's a good thing, but we weren't prepared for it. But we're trying to look at it as if it would help us. But I need a direction here. Does anybody want to make a motion, or do we stop what we're doing? Do we go forward and look at the what they may offer us as far as help in determining? I know that we have to make this heat pump thing the predominant heat in the building, that it is going to be the source. So that has to be determined, and they have to agree with us that that's what we're going to use. So where do you want to go with this? Ralph?
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead to purchase the 400 amp service. Sounds like we need to do a little more research before we can look into the heat pump. But we definitely need to buy the service. We know that no matter what we do. If we're going to do anything, we need a bigger service.
Vika?
So I think with the motion, it would be to make a recommendation to the select board, because they need to authorize it and then authorize where that expenditure is going to come from.
Second the motion.
Okay. We have is there any discussion on this? Bo?
If you want, I can go ahead and talk to Ken and try to get something in writing from him, a little more description than just the verbal.
Than what we have.
That way you can present it to the board more official.
If I may say, we have had him look at this. We have it in our minutes that he felt that it could take care of what we have now, but it can't take care of anything above that. That's what we know. I think that the motion is there and there's a second, and I think we need to vote. That doesn't mean that we're putting it in, but that's meaning that we are recommending to the board to purchase the 400 amp service, the electrical things. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I had a quick question. It's Beth. So is this something broadband's gonna help pay for?
Not at this time, no,
Okay.
that I know of.
So I think the understanding from broadband's perspective, and I don't want to speak directly for them, but having had communications with some of the members from that committee, they have it in their budget to get their own generator and have their own system set up so electrical is going directly to the location, and the stuff that is currently located on the old Calder property. They wanted to relocate it to the town office location, and they wanted to contribute towards the cost if it was hooked up to the town office generator and the town office electrical. They would be in line to contribute to the cost of that, because that ultimately would save them costs. Now, if there's question about the current electrical system, as far as whether the generator can sustain that or not, I think there is more research that needs to be done about that before we can determine where that money is going to come from, or if broadband can contribute.
Bo?
So-
Go ahead, his hand raised.
Oh, Chris?
Bo, do you want to go?
Chris, go ahead.
Okay, so obviously I agree that we need to up the amperage service to the town offices. And if it makes sense, in other words, mathematically or from an engineering perspective, it makes sense for broadband to piggyback on that 400 amp service, then they should contribute to that, and that would benefit the town, right? We're paying for a solution one time instead of two solutions, one time, because it doesn't change the 400 amp service. And that's all engineering. We can size and specify that, and that would include what's required for the generator. Given the size and cost of duplicating those systems, which includes the size and cost of duplicating the diesel fuel that goes into those systems, right? It's really fully duplicating. And I'm done. Go ahead, Ralph.
Bo had his hand up first. Bo, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I got some drawings from Michael Porter about what they're planning to put there, or what they'd like to put there, which is essentially just a covered slab, a slab with a roof on it. I believe it's kind of similar to the pizza house or pizza thing at the school, something similar like that, but with a cement slab. I still got to ask him about how much amperage that thing needs, and a little bit of details on that as far as the electrical. I'd like to know if the board wants me to move ahead and talk to Ken and ask him if for more details, or basically an estimate, a cost estimate with details on it. This is what you're getting.
Bo, we had a $6,500 cost for the upgrade to 400, and 15,000 for the conduit and the digging and all that stuff. It was not in writing, but that was given.
I know the board's going to ask for it in writing. So that's why I'm asking if you guys want me to go talk to Ken and get something in writing from him, I will.
Go ahead, Ralph.
So a quote is only good for a approximately 30 days usually, sometimes less. Just bear that in mind. But I feel like, unless I'm misunderstanding something here, I feel like we're getting out into the weeds. My motion was to purchase the 400 amp service, not to install it. We're talking about installing it. I think we just need to buy it. That's a separate discussion when to install it, I think. And then we can involve the broadband then on installing it.
I totally agree with you, and I'd like to move the motion here. So we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Raise your hand. Beth and Martha?
Yeah, we're both, yes.
Okay. So the motion is passed that we're going to go that far, and then we'll get together again, Bob, and see what we can do. And anybody else that wants to be part of that conversation, I would ask to please join us. So here's the next thing on the agenda is the electrical system update. So let's just hear what the electrician had to say when he came out yesterday, which was great, which I think gives us the knowledge that we need an upgrade. So go ahead, Curtis.
Sure, I'll say it again, no problem. I mean, we took out the engineer, he looked at the panel. There's basically no room currently in that existing panel for any of the heat pumps. And without doing the full calculations there, the 200 amp seems to already have been maxed out. So currently the facility's up and running and it's basically at its limit. So the recommendation moving forward would be to upgrade that system from the engineer at this time. So
Okay. So we've discussed what the monies were available. Let's go to the Port City Town Office short-term renovations. If you all were sent the maps from Vika, had a chance, I hope, to look at it. Do you want to kind of go over it a little bit, Curtis, and then we will dive into questions and concerns, answers? You can
sure.
answer them. Thank you.
Sure, I can. If you want, Vika, if you want to enable share screen, I can pull it up too.
Do you want to take the lead, Curtis, or you want me to? I was brought because I'm the furniture person.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about the proposed stuff. I mean, initially, the thoughts behind it, we'll show you the demo first, but the thoughts behind it is that the town hall currently needs storage space. Storage space is what they're really lacking in, and they have, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, so town hall, of course, is just this one little section of the building right here. So proposed, Vika's office is basically anyone in the town office right now can hear Vika through her walls. They're not very soundproof. So we are planning on moving her office as well as reorganizing the space that the three other workstations back here, code enforcement, the bookkeeper, and the, I think, treasurer are back here, that we're going to reorganize that, as well as when they were able to discuss with the fire station, allowed to use the break room. We're talking about removing a portion of this wall to give them access to that break room through their area here. So that's kind of the demo portion. We're going to remove a couple more doors just to open the space up, because right now those are just useless at this time. And looking at the future renovation plan, they're going to be unneeded anyways. So moving into the proposed section here, I'll let Lita talk about kind of our solutions here. So
we're starting at we're at Cadillac, Mercedes version here. Because you want to kind of dream, and then we'll worry about what is in here for price. So what we're looking at is system furniture, and we can show you some photos of that, some mock-ups of that afterwards. And the whole idea is that this furniture is designed so it can be taken down and reconfigured as needed. And that allows people to be able to do what's needed. I'm going to use my markup, so don't move it, Curtis, because otherwise I will mark in a really weird spot. So right now, this is a counter, the typical, or excuse me, a desk. This is not needed. We're just showing what could be there. This unit right here is adjustable height with a return, a filing cabinet underneath it, and a pedestal. And they actually included in several locations an upper cabinet. You can easily get by with a filing cabinet, a return, and a desk. Whether that's movable or not, that's going to be 1,000 times better than what you have. He also provided pricing for the shelving. My recommendation is when you do this, get shelving. IKEA, Walmart, Home Depot. You'll have to install it yourself, but that will make the proper shelf will make your life better. The most important thing is this right here. This is medical storage. Can you go all the way down to the bottom, Curtis, to that medical storage? Oh, I got to erase. You guys have probably seen this. It's a dense stacking way of filing. This is the densest way to file without going full-blown movable furniture. This takes all the files, and as we all know, there's a lot of files that are shared by land use and the assessor about each property. So this takes all the files and just stacks them sideways. And what you can do is you can move this one over and access the one back here. So you have to move that one and this one. This system is totally movable when you relocate. It's expandable, and we've put it in at Arundel. I wish I could say this was my idea. It's not. We put it in at Arundel. They love it in the land use area. And we are now putting it into York. In both of these cases, we took a space that should have been 3 times as big as what it needed, and space equals dollars, and put it in a single space that's movable. Questions before we go back up? And feel free, I do better with questions than just babbling. All right, you want to go back up to the plan? So that's
I'm sorry, Lita, I just had a question about how much does that cost, that system?
We're going to get to the cost afterwards.
All right.
And what we're showing now, we're showing that you can put up to 3 units here. Our estimation is that you need 2 at this time. So we're showing the maximum built out. Okay. So, and then this is the town manager's office, same desk setup. We did do a 3-drawer lateral file because there will need to be a space for personnel records that can be locked. There are just some things that shouldn't be on the whole floor. Okay, you want to go through the model and we'll get to the price, because you guys are going to go, whoa, but they threw in the Mercedes. You guys need a Toyota or a Nissan Sentra. You know what I mean? All right. So I think this bottom one will give you the best look. So this is, oops. Stop moving, Curtis, because when I draw, it goes elsewhere. So this is the desk. This can go up and down. I don't think you need these uppers, but we were pulling this together very quickly and they included them. So that's something, yeah, that it's nice, it's pretty, but a personal filing cabinet, which is two smaller drawers and a big drawer, allows for personal items like a hairbrush, toothbrush, as well as a place to put a purse or other things, is what we're recommending. This is just a copier there. And then this is the shelving. You don't need to buy shelving here. Keep going, Curtis. This is, oops, that would be the town manager's office, the one above with the walls down. They just took out the wall that was here. And then this is, it's very condensed. This gives you the 3 desks around, the 3 desks with privacy panels if you want it. However, that's a personal preference of how high. The higher you go, the more expensive it is, or if you even want them. We have a short one between Andy and I because I'm a piler and my pile would kind of creep on his desk before we had that wall, but we like to be able to talk over it. So it's just a personal thing. Like I said, Mercedes. And if you can see, oops, stay there. This is the, oops. This is the filing cabinet that I think everybody needs. And then this is a mobile petty, which is nice, but can be added later, but it's not needed. It just gives them another work surface that they can pull out because it's mobile, or somebody to sit there. However, I think this office is so small that you're just going to pull up the chair from the neighbor. Keep going. So that kind of, and I think that gives us, does that take us to the price, Curtis? No.
Before you get to the price, can you go back to the 3 stations so that everybody understands that one?
Yeah.
That what you've done is, Curtis, you've taken Vika's current office and taken that space up into the door, the back of the town office, and made 3 workstations out of them. And they're private, correct? I mean, they can be, so people can work and not be disturbed. And there are doors, like where Vika's office was, but that workstation would be up against that door.
Yeah, that's the door right there. That would be covered.
And then there's another door on the other one.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, you better draw that. That I'm not as good at.
And so that allows the bookkeeper to have their own space. And does the bookkeeper do the payroll?
Yes.
So it's important that they are working in privacy with payroll and all. And the other 2 would be what? Because just go down through how you envision that.
So we would have one of those stations would be a full-time bookkeeper that would be in it. And then we would have one station, the other 2 stations would essentially be split between harbor master, tax assessor, and the code enforcement officer. And so currently, as our setup is that our tax assessor comes 1 day a month, and she sits, due to a preference of where she sits, at the current officer, code enforcement officer's desk. So those 3, those 3 stations would be split based on those needs. Bo has his hand up.
Bo.
I just had a question. On this picture here, that far wall on the right, all the way, yeah, right there. Is that a cement wall or is that a?
That's the CMU wall from the old Sally Port that used to be there.
Okay, is there there thought about taking that out or reducing the size of that wall? Because I know heat pumps, the more open space you have, you know, the less units you have to have. So my thoughts would be if that would be taken down or reconfigured, you know, I mean, that could be done at a later date also, but
Right.
just thinking out loud.
Yeah, so at this stage, what we're trying to do is at this point, with the amount of ARPA funds that you have available and whatnot, we're taking into consideration is that we really want to provide the town office enough space for them for right now, at least for the couple 7 years, to get them there. So then in the future plan, when we actually look at tearing down these walls and put these other offices in where they truly want to be in this space, we're not redoing all this work. We can take systems furniture and we can put in the next office. So at this point, the storage needs are going to get met, and we can take this stuff and move it. So we're not spending money and then demoing it out and re-spending that same money. So that's kind of what we're currently why we're looking at systems furniture over more like walls and things like that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? David?
Yeah, just an impression of the layout. I appreciate all you've done to fit as much as you possibly can into the space. These 3 workstations strike me as a little bit cramped. And I'm just wondering, can we get by with 2 stations, that the bookkeeper would have 1 full-time and that the other 3 staff would share 1 hoteling station, basically. And just have it be a little bit more spacious, especially with that flat file there. I think it's really intruding in that 3rd station. Probably to the point where it's going to be a back banger. There's other solutions. I mean, flat files are awkward anyway. We could consider a hanging file or a rolling cart, vertical file type storage for plant sets, which might be a little more flexible. So I just asked that question about the personnel. Do we really need 3, or could we get by with 2 maybe more functional stations rather than the 3 cramped ones? And then another comment is I love the high density storage systems. I think they're great. I think you've got an accessibility issue there with the door clearance floor area at the doors, and I think we probably want this to be accessible from an ADA standpoint, both from the idea of maybe public coming back there for meetings. If there's a public coming in for meetings, are they going to go back in through that new door into the big conference room, or are they going to try to sit at one of those workstations and talk to the CEO, for instance?
Curtis?
Oh, I just want to answer on the ADA portion real quick. Currently, the only ADA access for quote unquote wheelchair access is this front lobby. There's a large step here, and the patios to these doors currently are up and lifted. So there's no other way to get a wheelchair into this space back here. So currently it's not ADA accessible at this time. The only way to make it ADA accessible would be either to extend a ramp and use one of these other doors, or somehow, trim out this step and pour concrete but then that'll make a huge mess there.
Okay. I just bring it up as long as everybody's aware of that. And
Well, you can, if this door is a swinging door, both directions, you can make that an ADA door. It's not ideal. It's not what you want. But we're trying to get you through the next stage. I don't disagree that it's crowded, but I'm not sure unless you want to reduce desk, I'm not sure what else to do. Curtis, refresh my memory. Did we need the 2 flat files now or in the future? How many are there now?
There's 1 currently right now.
You might be able to get that with a rolling rack, but a rolling rack only takes on about 2/3 of a flat file. It does not accommodate as much as a flat file does. So what we've been doing with flat files is we've actually been raising them either with a second flat file or with just a piece of, or, I mean, let's face it, when we we're in college, we used cinder blocks. It'd be a little more elegant than that, so that it can be at a higher level so that it can actually be a work surface too.
And I do want to bring it back to David's question then for Vika is, can you go down to 2 workstations or do you need the 3? Just to bring it back for David.
So I think that the current design is based on what we currently have. And so we currently have those 3 desks in that far room. And so I think that that was the conversation based on what we currently have and what we can currently accommodate. And I think that it's, you know, if the selectmen make a decision to change certain job descriptions or to increase them or decrease them, I think that that would raise alternative questions. But short-term answer is that I think that design kind of simulates what the current desks and what exists currently in the office.
What about the question of the public coming back to meet with somebody? I mean, I've been in there to meet with Jim and I pull up a chair to the desk that he's sitting at, but I can't see that being possible with these workstations.
So it's currently the way that the setup is, it's really not possible either. I mean, today I had a meeting with Bob and Carolyn. We ended up doing it outside of the office because we had all of the desks occupied. And so I think the one benefit that we have in this transition is we do have that opening to the rostrum where if we need to meet and sit down at a table, that increases and, you know, triple is the space that we have currently, because it's, you know, whether it's a private conversation, whether it's the code enforcement officer, harbor master, bookkeeper, everyone hears the conversation as it exists. And so I think that's one of the benefits in working with the fire department to open into that other room is it really allows us more flexibility to have those conversations there or to, you know, to really spread out when we need to
Okay.
for the time being.
Yeah, great.
That's huge, and I thank the fire department people for agreeing to allow us to use the training room. It's really going to help the situation a great deal.
Yeah, and I think
So-
to just, you know, put it slightly in perspective right now, we, in the current setup, what we have is maxed out to the point where whether it's my personnel file needs to be doubled in size or whether it's the code enforcement officer, you know, you all can see the level of construction that's taken place. We're totally maxed out on where we can put this stuff. So if we can increase our ability to file things and to be able to, you know, increase some space for the next couple of years, that'll make a huge difference, I think, just in productivity of the day-to-day balance in the office.
Bo?
I just have a question for Curtis on the to go back what Dave is saying, the space in between the desk and the wall on both of them on the lower, yeah, that right there. What is that distance approximate?
I think it's right around 3'4".
So this
So-
is oh, I turned that off. This is a 60 by 30 workstation or table. This is a 24 by 48 system.
So it's 3 feet then.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm like, what David's bringing up, if we make that 2 separate areas and then one of those walls or whatever has bookshelves on it and stuff like that to accommodate the several people that would be using it. Basically, that shelf belongs to the harbor master, that shelf belongs to whatever, and that shelf belongs to whatever. then we can do it with 2 bays and accommodate, everybody. But I mean, I don't work in the office, so I have no, I don't know for sure, but to me, I think this more storage would be better than 2 desk areas.
And Bo, I agree with what you're saying, and day to day, most of the time, no problem, I think. And I think that, Tim could speak to this. Most of the time he's by himself, but then you land on a day like today, which they are rare, but we do, we had the code enforcement officer, we had the tax assessor, we had the bookkeeper. So all 3 stations were occupied, and then myself and the town clerk. So we had, the deputy clerk luckily wasn't here. And so I think that, I think day to day as things stand right now, but I think my only hesitation is, if one of the position is increased within the next couple of budget years, while we are trying to work around this system, it might be a little tight to move within that. So that's the only hesitation I have there. But I think that day to day for what things are now, it could work.
And I agree with Vika. Like she said, today was interesting in that we were full, but, and again, we're not full all of the time, but when we are, I'm just not sure how we would handle that unless we, move someone into that conference room over on the firehouse side, temporarily, let's say for the day or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I just think that it's tight. I mean, I know I see that 3 feet is tight, but I think that's a good way to go at this point. Just my opinion.
Bob has his hand up.
Bob, sorry, it blended in.
Yeah, so I think Tim hit on a good point, and I think you guys might want to spend some more time thinking this through. How many days per year is everybody there? And how many days per year would 2 of those desks be occupied? And how many days of the year less than that? But to Dave's point, those are probably the smallest workstations that would be designed for a call center, for example. In terms of the actual working area, there's a good amount of work surface there, but the actual footprint. Second point, the pedestals with the cushions on top of them are probably adequate for the kind of 10-minute conversation that the code officer has with someone who's walking in to get a piece of paper filled out, give a check, that kind of thing. But you're going to float over to the conference room if you've got a 30-minute meeting or an hour meeting. And then the point that Tim raised, I think you guys need to talk about more, which is, let's say that it's 5 days out of the year that everybody happens to be there for a good portion of the day. That's when one of the people who is transient can camp out in the conference room. And by cutting it from 3 stations to 2, providing a pretty sizable increment of more comfort and space for the 2 job functions that are there a lot of days, as opposed to creating 3 smaller workstations because all 3 of them are going to be occupied 5 days out of the year. I'm not trying to give the answer. I'm just saying that, A, I've worked in workstations that small before, and B, don't forget that with the conference room, you've got overflow capability for 1 or even 2 people, depending on their function.
Lita?
So what I would suggest is I wouldn't make these systems any bigger if you are looking at bringing it lower, but you could put the flat file here. I'm not even going to begin to doing lettering with a mouse is never good. You could do that. And this makes it feel a lot more open to have these desks like this. Remember, it's adjustable. If you hire somebody in the future and you need 3 desks, you could go back and get this system furniture and infill it. Yes, it's tight, but that is an option with system furniture, is to start out with 2 desks. If you need to go to 3 desks, you can reconfigure it. It's just an option.
Can I just comment real quick? So I appreciate for David to bring this up and everyone else that has commented to it. And I think, you know, when you look at the 3 stations, one of those stations, we would have a full-time bookkeeper in it. And so we're anticipating a very tight squeeze for a full-time employee in it all the time, well accommodated part-time employees in the other 2 stations. So I think that, you know, I hadn't looked at it this way, but I think that's a good compromise in, you know, trying to accommodate the other part-time employees in maybe one of the stations with the additional overflow. So we can provide the adequate space for the full-time employee in one of those stations and be able to have the space that they need to really function at the best capacity that they can. So initially I hadn't thought about it, but I definitely agree with maybe transition into the workstation and seeing how it could progress as over time.
So you're kind of leaning towards now the two stations. Okay, I have a question about that medical storage thing, because I've not seen one, and David brought up, you know, the room of, how do you pull that out? Does it come straight out?
Go down, Dirk Curtis.
Yep.
So what's hard to see, I'm going to annotate. Whoops. So it's hard to see, but there's a track right here, right there. And this unit slides back and forth on that track, without much pressure. Woo, you know, and so basically you can easily push them. They're ADA. These are low enough profile that you can access them that way, and go at it. So it's just basically what you're seeing, whether you go with 2 or 3 shelves in a row that slide back and forth, and you access the one behind. So you'd access that one behind by pushing this one and this one that way. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't realize the track part, but what's the width? How much space does that take as a whole, in width? Or length, whichever you, up against the wall, how wide is it?
So it's about 14 inches each. It depends on which system you get. That's why I'm saying it's about.
Not depth, width, Lita.
I'm sorry. Oh,
Not the depth.
The width, you can get 30, 36, 42. I think that's about the big. And do you remember what we did to maximize it?
I think
they're 30, right?
I think it's 3 30 inches.
Yeah.
3 30-inch increments. So
And the height,
it's 60.
and the height?
The height on these, I think you can get them in a few different heights. I believe Lita's talking right now. Lita, what are the heights on these?
Once again,
Adjustable, right?
the height, usually we're going to go for about 7 feet, but that's, once again, that's something we can work with. The 7 feet is the upper shelf would technically not be accessible.
Okay.
Furniture, you can, by law, does not have to be accessible. Like Vika's office is not accessible, but if Vika hurts herself or you hire somebody different, you can adjust furniture to do that. So you have a little more latitude with furniture than you do with an actual building. So, but once again, we want to maximize it as much as we can, because it would be nice to go a little bit higher and only go with 2 rows versus shorter and 3 rows. So, mainly for money as well as space. So,
Chris?
Yeah,
Christopher,
thanks. I think Bob was first, though.
I can't see Bob with his,
Yeah, Bob, Bob was technically first. Go ahead, Bob.
okay, Bob, I apologize. Please go ahead.
That is simply me forgetting to lower my hand from my last comment. Hand lowered. Go ahead.
Okay, so the preemptive strike, not necessary. No, I just wanted to since I've been quiet, add the comment that, first of all, just getting the conference room, the Ross room is going to be the single biggest reliever of pain, because it simply provides, that extra space for anyone to have a conversation or anyone to lay out a wider workspace. So that's just super awesome. With regard to the space that we're talking about, where we've got the either the 3 or the 2 workstations, I think if we design it, I really like Alita, what you drew, where you've got the 2 stations on the outside. That gives people the ability to sort of breathe, to work, to get their
Curtis.
job done, and then as needed, if there's a floating table that sits in between there, if someone needs to land for 4 hours of work and then get back on a boat and go away because they've done their job, then you've got flexibility to that. And I think that's smart. We all know this is not the permanent solution, because we're going to change the buildings and do something different. So let's do something that is immediately workable and know that we've got, room for 2 or 3 people to hot seat in a conference room if they need to.
Curtis, can you do those edits not on Zoom, but on the PDF?
No,
Okay.
not in this computer.
Okay.
I have to be in
We
office.
can fix that tomorrow then.
Yep.
Just a technicality thing.
Chris,
so-
go ahead.
Yeah, a second question, and I admit that maybe I've missed it and it's been covered. With regard to the files, the medical files do not appear to be fireproof in their location or management, and I know that is something that we do need to manage. Has that been covered somewhere else that I've missed?
At this time, it is still that one safe that they currently have at this time. In the future, there is in the future plan, there will be a vault going in, but it is not currently, with their situation that they have for space, viable to put in a fireproof vault at this time. And I think they're still functioning with that smaller safe at this time. So
At York, for the temporary office, they actually got a 30 by 48 by 7-foot cabinet. You don't want to know how much it would weigh. Putting it on the boat, you're going to make sure it's in the right place, because it would tilt. But they were expensive. They're about $4,000 for it. But that's something, if you need to expand in the future, until you can afford the big renovation, that's what I would go with. And that's another thing. We can see if I can find that information for you.
Ralph?
I'd just like to see the prices and then work from there. But I think then Vika prioritizing, because obviously we're not, I'm guessing we're not going to go with the Cadillac version. We're going to move down to the Corolla version at some point. But I think we're at the point where Vika needs to prioritize and get back to us. Maybe that would be really helpful. Question mark.
Vika?
So as far as, the priorities go, I think what we've talked about tonight in terms of the needs, it would be great to have things be in a fireproof vault. The current little vault that we have, our couple $100 of petty cash is really the only thing that fits into it. And so I think realistically, we can't sustain all those needs between now and when we really improve the facility. I think as far as the costs in terms of, Cadillac, Honda, whatever version we're talking about, the only thing that I can really reference to, and I think Lita can probably speak to it, when she informed me of these numbers, she had referenced as far as the information that they're providing us with and the recommendations that they're making are the better versions, but those better versions could be transitioned future into new building in the future. And then with these better versions, in my understanding, and Lita by any means speak to it, is that there are discounts that are associated with it. So after those discounts apply, the cost of these nicer furniture is dropped down to a mediocre one, but I'll let you speak to that a little bit.
There's a couple of things. I know the tight. So if your bylaws for Shabig allow it, what I would recommend is working directly with a furniture provider. We went for public projects. We actually go to Creative Office Resources. They changed their name recently because what they did is every couple of years, the state sends out an RFP that asks for all the furniture vendors to provide standardized pricing for furniture, and they were the successful bidder. So most towns will allow you to go directly to them because that competitive bidding has already occurred. We talked about that, was that yesterday, I think?
Yeah, and so where we left off with that, I looked into any of our ordinances and policies and I could not find anything that has any specific requirements where we have to go out to bid to buy office furniture. I also reached out to our previous town administrator, Marjorie, to see what her knowledge was, and I have not been able to hear back with an answer. And so as things stand, I don't believe we have any kind of requirements, which I think ultimately would put us in the position of being able to do it this way.
So what they priced out is Herman Miller, which is a very high-end furniture, but Herman Miller gives state institutions a 30% discount, which puts it back below AIS and some of the others that are usually. If we do a lot of work at UNE almost always does AIS, very good quality, but they're not a government entity. If we're dealing with a government entity, even a state school like UMaine or Orono, we end up with Herman Miller because the pricing comes down. Personally, I would love to get Herman Miller for our office, and we don't qualify for the discount. And the designer discount's only 15%. So we end up with usually AIS or sit on it, both very good. So Curtis, you want to go down and let me, before you see this, this price is going to drop significantly based on the conversation we're having right now. First of all, we just got rid of a whole unit. One more.
I'm going to scroll down, but I got to step out. So I'm going to leave it on this screen for you to discuss pricing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So this, it's a little over $3,000 a unit. However, we just got rid of one unit. I think we want to get rid of the upper cabinets, which are really nice, but they don't make it in most budgets, which will bring that price down. And the other thing that would be is getting rid of if you wanted the height adjustable work surface, that has some money attached to it. My recommendation was to possibly look for that height adjustable work surface for the permanent employees that are there every day. and not go with it with the ones that are in and out. This also shows 2 desks for the clerk's office. It's nice, but your desks, I believe, are adequate at that. So you could cut that down by 3 desks and cut this in half. The flat files you already have, he just was going off of what he didn't know that. So that comes off immediately. This, I would say you're going to be about 26, 27 with the changes we made to each unit. This is important. This will save you a lot of space and a lot of filing cabinets. Once again, though, this is for 3 deep, and you could go with 2 deep at this time. And if you need to expand, you could go to 2 deep. So I know that when you look at this, I'm surprised I didn't hear anybody go, oh! But we think we can easily get it in there. If you are allowed by your bylaws, I would recommend going directly to Pete. We'll be happy to provide guidance, but this is what he's done. I've worked with Pete for 25 years, and he will work with you to your budget. I don't say that about everybody. So that might be the best way to get that in line. Okay. Oh, he also has in here. Sorry,
So Lita,
things in there. So go ahead.
so Lita, the total cost you think is going to be probably $10,000 less, depending on the desk and the walls and all that?
I think we could probably get it closer to half, depending on where you need to be. That does mean the clerk, though, would not be getting new desks.
Okay.
And that would be getting shelving units at, Lowe's or something else. I think when you come in that door, I haven't been out there, but I've looked very intensely at the photos. As you come in the main door, you kind of have 2 piles there. Get some utility shelving. It's $180. It will make that space much better.
So my other question is does Curtis have the number for an estimated cost on construction?
He's working on it.
Okay, so he does not have that for tonight.
No.
Okay.
He went back to Dukas Construction, who we got the initial costs, and that's just didn't have time to turn it around.
Okay.
But we are working on that.
Well, thank you very much for the work on this.
Is there
I
any-
was kind of anticipating if we're getting new furniture, that's how much it costs. So
Is there any other questions regarding the layout, furniture, Vika?
I just have one comment. So the one thing that I have to comment on is, we can cut back on the stations. I think that if we're questioning who gets a new desk, who doesn't, and with these desks being able to transition into the future new thing, the one thing that I want to comment on is that, we're going to be doing a lot of reconstruction and changes into most of the current existing building. And then I think that just seen as one of the 3 full-time employees in here is the town clerk, and then we have a part-time clerk. I think that it would be worth our investment initially to get those desks for those 2 stations as well, if we're doing the other ones. So that would be if we're working on cutting costs anywhere, that's the one place where I wouldn't recommend cutting cost. I think that it would be worthwhile to upgrade those desks at the same time. other than that, I think, we're on a good track.
Our job is just make sure. Yeah, I'm removed. Our job is to give you the tools and then help you make, get what you need. So let us know. I mean, it's your choice. Just we're getting the tools for you to make that choice.
Okay.
Bob's got his hand raised.
Yes, Bob.
Lita, I can't move the screen up and down. I'm having a hard time sorting it out. So the 3 workstations that in the original design for the back office, if you will, is that this 3827 number?
So let me mark this up. So each is, I'm going to just, is 31,000. And that's with all the bells and whistles. So this is
Workstation is 3,100. You said 31,000.
I'm sorry, 31. Yeah, I do that. Sorry. It's hard to type, talk, and think. So it's each one with all the bells and whistles is 31,000. So that we already, I think, took one out. And that includes the town manager, 2 in that dual office, and 2 in the clerks. But go ahead.
If they're 3,100 each, so this line here, installation workstations and okay, that's the labor cost is 3,827.
The 38, that's yes. And that will come down because you don't need this. But that's not a lot of money because you already have the flat file.
So my question is, do you guys ever work with refurbishers?
No, you can. It's a crapshoot. I mean, this is something that's going to be 10 years.
I used to be a vice president with Herman Miller a while ago. And for a couple of years, I spent time in the refurbishing industry. So I know the ins and outs of it. Are there refurbishers in Maine, or do you have to go to Boston to see the product? Do you know? There used to be some in Maine. I don't know if they still
There
are.
was one in Lewiston. On that, I don't know enough about it to be able to help guide you. I think you might actually know more being out of Herman Miller, and kudos to you. I love your stuff.
I have been there for a long time. So,
well, but I do think that you'll get a little bit of a limited warranty, but that would be something that if you wanted to look at, you could. But yeah,
I agree. When we go through the state, we will get a discount from list, and it'll be interesting to see how that number works out. But I would suggest that the committee also consider learning more about that alternative that I mentioned, which is loosely called the refurbishing industry. There are crooks in that industry. There are good people in that industry, like any other industry. And there is a absurdly large excess of product floating around that industry right now because of the pandemic and because of the work at home movement, which has not changed. So it's something to consider.
Chris?
It was actually Bob's final sentence was the words I was going to speak to, and that is that there is a lot of consolidation around working from home rather than going to the office, and there is a plethora of extra office space out there. I did check on the site in Lewiston. That will be, we'll need to keep our eyes on that. In terms of finding something that fits our space, but certainly around the Boston area, we should keep our eyes open once we have the dimensions of the room and the design and the desired layout. I would also state that we should spend for a high quality sitting solution for any of our employees that are sitting on their butts all day and working. That may or may not include Herman Miller, but that is and I would strongly endorse, although that's not the purpose of this call. That's the one place we should invest, because that is investing in their physical health.
Sit on it is really nice too. Lots of times the sit on it will beat the Herman Miller on the chair. But that has the potential to take a look at both of it. As for the refurbishers, I'm not sure who's going to take the lead on that. Make sure you check on installation. Being an island, a refurbisher might get you on that. So, great. Look at it. Just ask the question as you go forward, to not think you got a great deal and then somebody goes, oh yeah, there's, $12,000 installation on an island.
If I might say, that all sounds like a very good idea, but I also want us to keep in mind that we have committed, or we have come with a mindset over the months that we've talked about this, that we're looking for changes to be able to be moved and used in the future. And while I have no experience with the refurbishing thing, it may be very practical, but I would suggest or ask somebody that's comfortable with scoping that out to see what their thoughts are. I don't have the experience in that, so who might want to, you're all talking about refurbishing, somebody is got to take the lead on that, and who wants to do that? Oh, come on now. Got some great ideas here. Let's. Yes, Chris.
So I'm willing to poke at it. I think that we have to, before we do that, other than, known chairs, we actually have to look at what are what is the dimensions of the room and what is the final plan. So, yep. When we get to that point, that seems like a reasonable thing to do, but I'd like to see what else we're saying yes to, or more to the point, let's just make sure that we can budget to make these changes, in the building, and then get to the furniture piece second.
That's a very good point, but we'll keep you in mind that you're the one that's going to be poking at the refurbishing. Okay. Bo.
Yeah, I was just gonna pretty much what Chris said. Basically, to me right now, I would invest the money into remodeling the walls, moving the walls around and doing the filling in the doors and all that, and also buying the mobile track shelving unit. I think would increase a lot of the room in there. And for right now, just keep the desks that we have until we can do the research on the refurbish and stuff like that. And if it comes back, then we can fall back onto these drawings and these numbers. But yeah, that's my thought.
So that's a good thought. So can someone quickly say what we've got to, not quickly, but can someone kind of look at that drawing and say how many walls, what we know we've got to tear down the existing kitchen area, the cabinetry and all that off. So that's a modeling thing. We know we're going to put up a couple walls, but we also know that the spaces for the employees or the two workstations are workstations. They is it right? They're not going to have a wall up against it, or are they?
When the remodel,
Correct.
with the two, you're talking about with the two desks, right?
Yes, the remodel.
So I would say if you're going to just open it up like that, I wouldn't put the panels up. I just put the two desks there. But if they need privacy, you could put a panel there. I mean, I think we need to kind of scope this out a little bit more offline and talk about it again, because there are implications there, good and bad, you know.
Well,
if-
the bookkeeper needs to have the, due to what he's doing for work, needs to have, you know, a panel. And,
Okay.
but what I'm saying to Chris, in looking at that, the workstations and the equipment is almost more than it's going to take to put the couple walls up and break out into the training room from the Ross room. Is that correct?
My comment was that I don't know what the answer is, and we should wait for us to see what that looks like. And also because I don't have my ruler out, I don't know what the actual final dimensions are. When you're doing furniture, I mean, what Lita and team have done here is they've actually specified based on their architectural tools. They've actually, they know what those dimensions are. And they've done so with intention. So we've got to just until that final report comes out. I can do any of us could do theoretical pricing, but what it has to do is actually has to fit.
Yeah,
Right?
and
we
I'm
know
not
the
I'm not
constraints.
asking for
Yeah.
that theoretical pricing. I'm just saying, looking at the big picture, a lot of this, my understanding is the workstations become the actual space. And it isn't like we're actually putting up sheetrock and walls. So
It's a partition, and a partition is going to be a fraction of the cost compared to sheetrock.
mhm.
And the other thing too is a partition can offer pretty good acoustical absorption in there. Well, it's my job to sell you renovations and not furniture, because honestly, I don't get anything out of furniture. I'm not doing drawings. I'm not, you know, it will give the staff the greatest comfort, and it will system furniture, the proper system furniture will get so much more done in a small space than a large space. I've got another client another town hall that I'm working with. And 2 years ago, they're in old school, bought these gorgeous desks that are huge. And now they want to build a new office and take their desks. And I'm like, great, but that's going to be $30 to $40 or $30,000 to $40,000 more per office. Or you can go buy a new desk for $3,000. And they're like, smaller desks. So that's something to keep in mind.
I'm sorry, I looked down. I'm not sure who was first, Bo. Who raised their hand? It's Vika and David.
David, you can go.
David,
Okay. I appreciate all the discussion about the furniture. It's important. It's critical for employee comfort and productivity and all that. I would suggest that we, well, and also just, it's painfully obvious that, I mean, the money we're talking about here is probably exceeds the budget available, the funds that we've been talking about anyway. So I think we should have Curtis price the hard construction numbers. My gut feeling is, I know there's just a little bit of demo and building a new office for Vika, but I think we're going to end up eating most of our budget just in that hard construction cost. There's going to be some cutting and patching. We've got some lighting probably to deal with. Then see what we've got left for the furniture. And, you know, again, my gut feeling is we're probably not going to have much left unless you're interested in increasing the budget.
that's a good point. Very good point. Vika?
I had, I think, similar thing to comment as to what David said. I think that if we're transitioning into the conversation of focusing on what the cost is for the reconstruction or, you know, the improvements, I think this is a discussion where it would be important to have Curtis on, because I think that what their charge was to, how can you best maximize the space that we have with what we have to work with? And I think they took what could they do to maximize the space. And for them, it was the recommendation of, you know, invest in furniture that you can transition into the new facility in the future. And so I think if we're moving slightly away from that and more into, you know, what is the cost of just the renovation, and then can we fit the existing furniture within that space? I think that, you know, before we trail off too much, I think having Curtis here for that discussion is important.
Good point. Ralph? Ralph?
There we go. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but every time we've ever done anything on the other side of the wall, over the fire rescue side, we've been asked to donate time. And is there any room for donation here for as far as labor? And I'm not volunteering myself or any member of the department, but it's always come up. And I'm just wondering if there's some way we can cut the cost there and help get some furniture by some people willing to step out to help with the construction or deconstruction.
I'm willing to help. That's fine. I don't have an issue. I've done construction in the past. I'm not the best, but I kind of know what I'm doing and I can help.
So with that in mind, I think Chris, he had a thumbs up, so he probably is going to float in here at some point and is willing to help us. But I think what we need to do now to move this on is to get Curtis to give us, like David and Vika suggested, first of all, let's get some dimensions on this remodel. So we're seeing the dimensions, so you all get a good idea of what we're looking at. And then get the construction piece into so we know what we're doing, and then we go from there. Does that all make sense? Got some shaking of the heads. Ralph? Okay, your hand's still up in the corner. I did see that. Okay, so Lita, can you kind of help us with the Port City part of that, and we'll do some.
Sorry. I was typing it to Curtis as you spoke.
So dimensions, what we have for construction or the demo and construction and how we're doing that, and then start dealing with the furniture plans. So any other discussion on this? I appreciate I mean, it's a start, and it's given us some great, it's given us some ideas and views and time well spent. I mean, we have to go through this. Bo.
I just have a question. Lita, in the offices, like you can see in Vika's office currently, she has a window.
Yeah.
Is there a plan to keep the window in those offices, or are we removing all those windows?
At this point, leaving the windows in, and actually we weren't even going to remove the doors for cost.
Okay.
We were just going to put the furniture up against it and a sign on the outside. I mean, we'd love to take it out, the door out, and put a window in it because light is good.
Okay. Yeah.
But this is this is a temporary solution for something that, you want to go to the long term. That said, if you guys want something different, let us know.
So essentially, right now, the plan is just to take down the two walls in Vika's office and essentially move them to the other, down the hill, and then cut through a cement wall for a door. That's the only constructions I see on that. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
there would be, the other thing is to remove the existing kitchen. So we have the existing kitchen, the existing wall, and the existing closet, which are all on the same wall. All of that would be stripped.
that's a 5-minute job. All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Alita, for your work on
Yes.
this.
No problem. You probably won't see me again just because you don't usually get two principals on a project. It's just,
Yeah.
I do furniture. Nobody else in the office does. So, good luck.
Thank
if
you
you-
for your time, Lita, and thank you
Yeah.
for, taking the time to talk to us.
If you have questions, don't worry, I'll be back, but don't think you've done anything to offend me.
Thank you.
Just my
Thank you
expertise.
very much.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
Okay, folks, let's get a suggestion here of where we go from here. Do we have another meeting and get the estimates of the demo and the construction part of this?
I think it sounds like that's where it's really leading towards, is we need more of a quote on how much the demo and that part is going to cost.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So can we look at a calendar and at that same time, maybe Bob, we could come up with some more info on what we need to do to go further with the grant?
We can. I have a list of questions for Efficiency Maine. I've gone back through that introductory document you referred to earlier and found a couple of things that are apropos to us.
Okay.
I will get something to you, Beth, by the end of this week.
Okay. In the meantime, we don't want to lose our momentum on the fire station. I know that there is, they've got a rough layout of that, Vika.
Yeah,
And-
it's a first preliminary draft of the first proposed draft of the fire department.
Okay,
And
so-
they had a first proposed draft of the future town hall until we threw this at them. So now they got to revisit it a little bit.
So having said that they have those available, how do you want to proceed? Do you want to have a short meeting on where we are now with this project so we get it in place of what we're looking at? And then plan the next meeting to look at the plans for the fire department as well as, and perhaps by then Ralph and his crew can have a look at that as well. Can we do two separate meetings is what I'm saying. How do you want to do this? It's your call. Anyone? Let me see a hand.
I think it's going to depend on how much involvement we want Port City in this. So do we want them present when they explain to us the first draft that they had shared with us or not? I think that should be, definitely a factor that we include in this. I do think that it's important as a board to meet about what the next steps are going to be before they, go to the Board of Selectmen. So I think that, it should be two kind of separate things that we're focusing on. I don't see the need to not do them in one meeting.
Anyone else with thoughts? Did they agree? Chris?
I move that we make it into 2 meetings.
Okay.
And that gives us the ability to digest it with a guide, and then to come back having viewed it. So that's a motion. I motion that we do 2 meetings if we need a motion.
Ralph?
Yeah, I'd like to have some time to look over the plan because I think we have some pretty dramatic changes to talk about as far as the fire and rescue station.
Okay, so we've decided 2 meetings. Can everybody take out their calendar and David, is it still work for you to do a 6 o'clock?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so it's 6 o'clock works for us all right now.
Yeah.
Good, Chris. Okay, somebody suggest a date, please? Sooner than better, sooner than later.
A question, is the content done? Is there, Vika, have they forwarded the material? Are they ready to present if we were to move as quickly as next week?
Well, if they're presenting, I would have to coordinate it with Curtis to see if he's going to be available. I do have an emailed version of the first proposal of the fire department and the original proposal of the town office prior to, to these changes.
But right now, aren't we looking at a meeting regarding the layout of what we're dealing with presently? And getting him to give us the dimensions as well as the demo guesstimate and the walls and all that, the walls. So that's what I was talking about. Let's do that first and then let's set up a meeting, but I think we need him at both of these meetings.
And I think that, if we want to schedule it as early as next week, I think it's questionable because he said he doesn't have the information for us tonight. So I think it's really dependent on when he gets the information and that availability. And so we can schedule a meeting, but I don't know how secure it's going to be if we're going to have to depend on them.
How about 2 weeks? Bo?
I'm just wondering, we're talking about doing a meeting with them just for him to give us a number and a breakdown on measurements for what he's proposing us to build, which is essentially 2 walls and a door. So I think he can just give us the rough measurements of what he's proposing and then give us some kind of a number that he got, or we can go out to the community and go get those numbers. Because there's nothing that says that we can't ask a contractor on this island to make a hole in the wall and put a door and then create 2 walls. I mean, I don't think we need a meeting with Curtis just to tell us the measurements. So that's my thought.
David?
I think that's right. It could be very simple. If it's not a big issue, it doesn't seem like a lot of work to put those numbers together. And it could be the preface to a larger meeting of the general, the master plan that's coming up, the larger project. We could include that all in one meeting. Have a separate meeting for the fire department issues.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
People, as far as how, I just want to keep this moving, so we keep this going, so then we pick up the fire department thing. But if we have a meeting to just discuss dimensions and a guesstimate on the construction, which we feel we can get from a contractor here, do we want to have some idea about refurbished workstations and all that? Can we get at least what the cost might be in difference for that meeting too? I mean, to keep this flow going so that we have everything kind of in a guesstimate mode. How can we do that?
So if we get the dimensions in the room, I can do some online checking on the furniture. I did some of it while we were on this call. I was forwarded in an additional place to look. So I think that should be done as long as we know the exact dimensions of what we're going to do, then we do it. Just to move it along, I would recommend Vika just find out when they can meet with all of the remaining information that we need. Let's just do it all in one meeting. Here are the dimensions. Here's the plan. Great.
That's what I'd like.
And then right after that, in the same meeting, that should take 15 minutes. We don't need to rerun through that. We can read the piece of paper and then we can, get on the fire station and begin digesting that, because that's going to be the bigger pill, and do it that way. That's my 2 cents. I am available on all Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights at 6. I've got to go pick up a kid, so I gotta jump. But I'm good. It's great to see all of you, of course.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Bo?
To me, as far as we all agreed that the drawing that he gave us was a good one. So right now we're just waiting on measurements. I don't think we need to make a meeting to go over measurements, unless we're looking to drastically change the dimensions that he's given us. I think our time would be better spent looking for, once we get the details and the measurements, to get Chris to look for the refurbishing furniture to accommodate that size. And then maybe we can go out to the community and see for pricing to do this work. I think that would be a better time spent, and then have one meeting, spend X amount of time on this project, and then jump into the firehouse and spend the remaining of the time do that. That's my thought.
I'd like to have Ralph and Beth, and I'd like to have the firemen be able to look at that layout. Or is it more important that we look at it? I mean, I can look at it and say, this is wonderful, but I don't have the expertise of what's needed, is what I'm trying to say with the fire department thing. And it's not answering your feeling is we can do both things at once. So we've got a Tuesday's work for everybody. Let's get that solved. As far as a date, we want to do an April, like 2 weeks, to maybe give him time to give us some dimensions. And
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
April 4th?
Are you thinking April 4th?
Yeah.
April 4th at 6 p.m. And with that, is there any way that we can get the dimensions to Chris Loader so he can do some reviewing of the refurbish? And also perhaps go back to Lita with the numbers and the changes of the 2 stations, and maybe we can get, what that costs from that certain company, Herman Miller. Does that work?
I'm not sure the Herman Miller path is viable, just from the numbers I'm seeing here.
And I have a question with that, David. When she says 30%, is those numbers the 30%?
I assume that it was.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we don't need new furniture right away.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're getting-
If we come back to the Board of Selectmen and go, it's gonna cost $20,000 to do this, we could take the $20,000 out of the new building. And then the HARPA fund can go for the furniture. Or we could even hold off on the furniture and just chunk it over years too. You know, this year you buy 3 desks, next year you buy this and whatever. But just a thought. Yeah.
Can
Sorry.
I make a quick comment on the furniture part as somebody who has sat in the existing furniture for the last 7 years? I think that it was very clear to me that the discussion and the significant expense of the furniture upgrade at this moment to accommodate the space and utilize it was definitely not strongly supported. In that case, I think that the focus should be redirected towards what is the cost of the remodeling that we want with the existing furniture that exists. I really don't think that I mean, I understand the concept of us spending time and investing time and looking at refurbished stuff. I get it. But I think right now, let's just focus on doing the construction and renovation. How can we fit the existing furniture within that renovation? And then in the future, when the time allows, focus on new furniture. I really think that, you know, if or when there is a new town office, for a pride factor, and I mean, by all means, I probably will not be here as the town administrator to experience it, but you know, 7 years or whatever, do we really want to look at refurbished furniture in a new town office? You know, I think we're looking at this furniture, I think was suggested as an investment to move it into the future buildings. And I don't know if looking at refurbished stuff right now is really wise of our time. I really think that we should invest in, if we don't want to deal with the furniture, fine, let's drop it all together. Let's focus to what the cost of to knock down that wall, to remove these doors, to move the town administrator's office for more privacy, and just leave it with that, and then put our focus onto the new fire department. But I know that's slightly different from, I think, what some of the conversation has transpired, but that's kind of my opinion with where I stand with it right now.
I thank you for that, but I didn't hear any of it because I went out in the night meeting. I lost it. I lost the Zoom. So I'm back in here. But I probably agree 100% with you.
So, and long story short is avoid any discussion of whether it's refurbished or new furniture right now. Focused on, you know, the cabinet renovation and move forward and call it good. I don't support the idea of investing time and energy in refurbished furniture if that's what's going to transition into a new building in the future.
Well, I will have to agree with you from my experience. And one of my jobs as a human resource person was to go into offices and make sure people had the proper chairs and the workstations were at the right height. And I am not sold on that at all, but I didn't want to seem, I mean, I'll go with the group. And what I hope is at least people come out with a decent chair and make sure that we can continue with the proper furniture.
Yeah, I agree.
So-
I'd rather wait and hold off on the furniture if it's a debatable factor right now, and invest in it properly in the future when the time allows, rather than penny pinching in something refurbished just for the sake of saving the money. Let's focus our energy on, you know, construction and improving the space without the furniture.
Vika, it'd be nice if you could get the number though of what, you know, this estimate is, so that we could go out maybe to another company and see. So she's, you know, she's given this to us, but let her break it down to the 2 workstations and all that.
Yep.
And the importance of the storage, which this is what it's all about. Okay, so we've got a meeting on the 4th at 6 o'clock, and are we with the idea that we're gonna spend the time on the renovation cost and maybe see some different numbers of the furniture, just to have it, but to have the primary thing on the cost of the demo and the walls and all. I don't mean to keep dragging this on, but we got to find out what we're doing here, and then have a meeting and have the rest of the meeting to review the firehouse. And if we do, are we gonna have Curtis in on that?
Yeah, he needs to be there for that. Absolutely.
So do you want to have both those things on that same day?
Well, I think the interim renovation can go pretty quickly. Like I said, that could just be a preliminary to the design meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yes.
I think we put a lot of time in it tonight. I think it could go quickly next time around.
Well, it's good questions. We can't just go, yeah. So we got to make sure that we hear everyone. And if you have some concerns or issues, please contact me. I can put them together and send out a memo so that we can be thinking in those directions and hopefully get them solved beforehand. So
Are we going to be getting the firehouse drawings?
Yeah, I haven't seen any plans. Is there a
I haven't seen
conceptual
anything.
plan? Preliminary?
no,
plan?
oh God. No, because we were given this task by the Board of Selectmen to get this figured out and get numbers to them before the budget. And that's why it's been said in a couple of memos that this is why we had this meeting and why they want to get an idea so they can put these numbers into the budget for the fiscal year beginning with July of 2023. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
this was tasks to this board by the Board of Selectmen to have done by, I believe, March
It was-
8th.
It
And
was supposed
so
to be
there's a
done
little
Monday.
delay in it, which is why everything else has temporarily been put on pause. But I do have the drawings from the facilities, for the facilities committee from Port City of their first proposal of the fire department, which based on what Ralph said with some changes, I'm curious to know what his changes are.
Okay, well, I'm curious. I mean, Ralph has seen it, but nobody else in the committee has. That's what I'm just.
Nobody has seen them. They were sent to me and nobody else has seen them. The only time that they were presented to us was when they came here and they did the walkthrough. Beth and I had seen the initial ones. And so they had both of the proposed for the proposed town office and proposed fire department. And then we came at them with this new development. And so that kind of got on pause and got on hold until this got developed. And so that's why no one has seen the other ones.
So we're hoping that, so you can send these, we'll get these sent out to you, to everyone for that review. And that will be our first round of looking at this potential firehouse across the street and what we may see the town office look after we get the firehouse done.
Yeah, that's all I was asking. Sorry.
No, it's no problem. I just feel bad because it seems, I'm feeling that you think that we delayed this purposely and we did not. It was the Board of
No.
Selectmen said, so take this and run with it. So that's why we have kind of stopped on that. But we'll get it out to you and you'll have it by.
Oh. I think we lost her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've lost a lot of people.
So all I was asking is, we're planning a meeting on the 4th to talk about the fire department. I would
Yep.
like to see the paperwork before we talk about the fire department.
Yep,
That's all I was
absolutely.
asking.
Yep, absolutely. Makes sense.
So,
And if Curtis has an estimate, a preliminary estimate on the interim town hall, or office, let us know that too.
Yep, I will. I'll try to get that information to you guys definitely a few days in advance prior to the meeting, so you can look over it and, you know, get an idea for what the information is.
that'd be great.
And then if a date changes or if Curtis isn't available, then I'll keep everyone posted and we'll go with a new date if that one doesn't work.
Sounds good.
Yep.
On
Thank you.
that note, are we in a good place to adjourn the meeting?
Oh, Beth just came back
Oh.
on.
So we'll plan on the 4th. We'll get all the information to you all, and this will be our first go through the fire station and discussion, and we should keep things going. Thank you so much for tonight. And most of all, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Beth. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good night,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Night.